internal ones. And we entitled it Vispiration. You can see our brand on screen now. The goal of these instructor-led weekly sessions was to help the bank's data analysts, both the aspirants, but also those old dogs, to get to grips with the full functionality of Tableau, as well as the critical design principles that make the difference between good and great data visualization. So we called our sessions, Vispiration. I think I've stolen that name from some hashtag, but we had a tagline, more value, more insight, more zing, which I thought was really cool. And I'm wondering how many of you guys realize that spells Viz? Okay. Anyway, we had some great feedback and learned a few lessons about we learned a few lessons ourselves, but overall had a really great experience. So if you're thinking of setting up your own internal training program and wondering what considerations you should make, then I hope there's something interesting and insightful in this talk for you today. So look, I'll cover why we did it, what we did, who we did it for, the hows, and then I'll talk about my top tips for internal training. All right, so why, I hear some of you asking. Why would you do this, David? Surely there's enough content online and there's probably other training materials you have internally at the bank. So why add more to the ocean of information out there? And look, it's a great point. I mean, there is a lot of great content out there, much of it written by the Flurledge twins, but not all of it is accessible to users for various reasons I'll talk about later. But there were a few reasons why we thought running these sessions could be valuable. This is one of the reasons. This is a visual representation of the learning curve for Tableau, which is not to be balked at. I've certainly swerved off this road many times, and I'm sure some of you folks have too. The second reason was that there's a lot of functionality in Tableau that folks aren't necessarily aware of. Those features on the dark side of the Tableau moon, so to speak. I've made a fair few visits in my time, and I'm still learning all the new things about how the tool works. And new features, of course, are always incoming. But what really brought this rationale to the fore for us was that when my colleague Ben joined the team as a Viz specialist last year, he was coming from an R background. So didn't have much experience with Tableau, but was a wizard data analyst, but didn't, for example, know the nitty-gritty nuance of how to use a parameter to swap sheets, for example. I mean, when I first learned about that particular trick, it blew my mind, all the creative possibilities that it unlocks. So we figured that there must be a large group of data analysts and Tableau devs across the bank that could benefit from learning about some of these lesser known tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them. Then, the final reason was beyond the Tableau hacks that we wanted to train folks for, was really that we wanted to promote good data storytelling. And, that's why a large part of our content was focused specifically on design and user interface. So, just bridging that gap between kind of like the tabular reports that we're used to seeing in our Tableau server instances, and really just promoting visual analytics. So we wanted in some small way to move the bank away from that, to add that more value, more insights, and more zing that we talked about. So we ran sessions for 3 months, almost every week, and what we reflected on it a lot, what worked and what didn't. And we've kind of distilled our learnings down to these top tips. I was hoping to make some sort of nice acronym, but I didn't get one. So we're just kind of with the SOTBU. In any case, four of them I think are really, really practical. And the last one I think is a bit lofty, but it's vital. So let's go through them. So the first one, setting goals. So, we knew what we wanted to do. We had an idea about the sessions. We had our brand, and now, being data people, of course, we wanted to set a measurable target, a SMART goal, right? And this is really important, right? Because goals can provide a sense of direction, increase motivation, boost performance, and keep us all aligned on that kind of North Star about what we're trying to achieve. Establishing what those KPIs are may be different depending on the objectives of your training session. But if you consider, like, you might consider, for example, the pass rate at the end of your session's final exam, or maybe it's some sort of feedback satisfaction metric that you've come up with, or maybe it's just a count of the individuals attending your sessions. But the important thing is that you establish upfront how you want to measure this stuff so that you can put systems in place to capture the data. And then, of course, when the time comes, you'll be able to bandy the success of your training program to your boss with some quantifiable results. In our case, we wanted to reach Tableau devs, right? Not just folks that were interested in Tableau or visualization, but folks that actually had a license, so that they were able to put into practice immediately any of those things that we wanted to teach them. So, we knew how many folks in the bank had a license, and we decided that if we got X% of those folks into our sessions, and perhaps we've added some sort of value with our program. Oh, by the way, as another handy tip in terms of collecting that data, we held all of our sessions virtually over Skype, so you can go into your conversation history and then count the folks that were in attendance, which was a handy trick to realize. But in summary, set your goals, gather your data, and impress your boss. All right, so then we have get organized. So I'm not a very organized person, generally speaking, but when we finally took the plunge and decided to run these things, we set our goals, and then we got organized. And that was really to make sure that everything had a proper order, so that our audience knew where they stood, knew what to expect, knew what they could rely on to maximize the productivity of our classes. So we set up an intranet site. So there was like a singular web presence for all of our sessions. People could sign up there, they could ask questions, get access to materials, etc. Training rooms were all virtual for us. So, but in this new normal that we're entering now, are we there yet? I don't know. Maybe something you guys should consider. Schedule and comms. So at every touch point that we had with our audience, be it in the emails we would send them or whatnot, we had the designer on our team, Kay. We basically made it our packaging and our materials that we're using to set our comms and schedules they were beautiful things. Basically, we wanted to make sure that all the materials were well packaged and communicated the value that we thought we were bringing to the table. Because as you guys will know, being Viz folks, there's a kind of we over-index on the importance of presentation, right? And professional packaging is a really powerful tool for a good first impression. So everything that we made was really well crafted. Another thing that we did to ensure that the value add of our sessions didn't end when the Skype window closed was we recorded all of our sessions. So this is pretty easy to do in a big org like DB that has dedicated video production teams. But of course, if you have your Skype or your Zoom or any of the other kind of applications for virtual meetings, I think they will often have this functionality native. But this, I think, was a really kind of key piece to make sure that that the asset that you make maintains its value, basically. And then finally, we had a very strict weekly cadence about our sessions. So on Monday, we'd have our 30-minute sessions. Then on Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday, we'd follow up with a thank you note, as well as like a link to the recording and all the materials that we used. Folks are always very interested in having slides, aren't they? And then, of course, on Friday, we'd send out a short reminder blurb for the next session on Monday. And I always thought that the cadence that we kept was really important to drive engagement, basically, to maintain the momentum that you build up. And I think being organized helps you to do that. All right. So then this is a really important tip for training anything, generally speaking, but it's one of the most vital, is to teach from first principles, right? This is, like, you could say it another way, teaching concepts rather than teaching features. But this is absolutely key to helping your audience understand both Tableau and good viz. Your audience is much more capable of genuinely inventing rather than merely iterating, more capable of retaining and using knowledge effectively because they understand those fundamental building blocks and aren't just memorizing content. I mean, sometimes you might have to get into the minutiae of detailed calculations, but generally speaking, I think keeping it high level, conceptual, and falling back on first principles is valuable. And that means basically, not assuming anything. So one of the very first kind of sessions we had was about what chart do you use, and one of the kind of key concepts we explored was what is an insight, right? I mean, so we're going back to the basics, right? That's what a chart's meant to provide, right? So this is that first kind of key question that a visualizationist must answer, and I think it's one of the reasons why we see so many tabular reports, because folks they just don't really know what charts might work to tell the story they want to tell. So we went right back to that. What's that story? What ways can you suitably encode your data to bring to life those insightful things that your stakeholders looking for? Of course, one of the key resources we used for that, and I think it was very helpful, was the Financial Times, and of course later Andy Kriebel's visual vocabulary. It's definitely so, helping folks to understand why they should be using these various different chart types rather than just saying this is how you build them. That's what I'm trying to say here. Although another one to kind of, I think, cement these ideas about first principles is to teach concepts from using examples outside of the data viz world. So, if folks can understand why something is important or works, X Tableau, then I think this solidifies the idea in a more permanent way. So, for example, what I used, one of my favorite chart types is a small multiple, and not just according to me, but also according to that great diva of data viz, Edward Tufte. But rather than explain why they're so effective using a data-driven example, I used a historical one. I used this one. So some of you folks may recognize this. This is Muybridge's Horse in Motion. And basically the idea was that, they just got this brand new technology, photography essentially, and he made this small multiple. I mean, I don't think Muybridge called it a small multiple, but he made it to demonstrate that yes, indeed, the horses do lift all of their hooves off the ground at a gallop. But I thought it was really cool because this is a small multiple, and our eyes are drawn to those differences in the relative different small charts, so to speak. So I guess the point I was trying to make is that this is a really effective way to visualize data, and I would like to see more of these things. And I think once folks can understand how they work in a non-data viz world, it solidifies those concepts. So in summary, if as a teacher you have a limited time to impart something, and you should use that time to build an understanding of the high-level concepts rather than specific features. All right, so the next tip, be precise. Now, this is a really important one as well, and probably the most useful for any kind of curious or enthusiastic analyst. And that is, when you're training, be absolutely deliberate and precise and accurate with your language. So, if you're training folks that are familiar with, excuse me, if you're training folks that are familiar with Tableau, they'd probably understand if you said to them, show me the sales by continuous order month, right? That's going to be sales measure with a green pilled month, right? To the old hat will get that, but a new user or somebody unfamiliar with Tableau will be like, what do you mean continuous month? Do I use the show me pane here? And you'll want to avoid all of these confusions by being precise and crystal clear with your Tableau vocabulary. Never use discrete when you mean dimension. Never use continuous month when you mean a date truncated month. This kind of thing can seem small, but your choice of words will really help illuminate in the minds of those folks what's going on. And another important point related to this one is that speaking precisely helps folks help themselves, right? Because it unlocks hitherto inaccessible content by teaching the language of Tableau to your users. And then armed with that proper vocabulary, they'll be able to go type the right questions into Google or into the community fora that Katie will talk about, and they'll be able to figure it out themselves. Because as we said, there is that enormous amount of content available online, but it can also be a lot of effort to find it, especially if you don't know how to ask for it. So half the skill of Tableau or Python or R or any software or anything really is to know how to ask Google, right? So be precise in your language and help folks ask their own questions. All right, so final tip, and that is be yourself, be authentically you. And I think this is one of the most valuable tips when you're trying to drive that most elusive of goals, and that is driving engagements, right? It's particularly important in the world, our virtual world of work, where we find ourselves, speaking into that black box, and we can't even see the faces of folks sometimes. But in any case, nonetheless, the academic research has shown that by teaching authentically, teachers create more meaningful experiences and deeper learning for their students, across settings, across disciplines. So not only is the perception better, but outcomes are better too. And being yourself differentiates your training program from any other one that's just watched on the internet. So I'm not trying to say, you have to reveal some detailed personal stories or be some sort of a clown to entertain your audience. But if you're funny or you have a sense of humor, show it. Your students will welcome it. The authenticity makes the training more fun, and that'll in turn make the trainees more enthusiastic and more interested. Some of you who know me, you know that I have the unfortunate quality of trying to be funny sometimes, but I think it can be particularly helpful at keeping enthusiasm at peak levels. So, one of the things that I did was I sprinkled memes throughout my presentations. I wanted to share one or two of them here with you. So here is Chad and the Virgin when I was trying to compare the benefits of bullet charts versus bar charts. But here's another one again on bullet and bar charts. Just to explain why why they might be more helpful than the traditional gauge charts. But look, in summary, I guess being authentic makes the training special, makes them unique, and I think it'll go a long way to help you achieve your training goals. So I think I spoke a little bit too quickly on that one. That's all I've got for today.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to jump in and add, as well as the sense of humor, which is the reason why I included the bit about you ringing me an hour before the last Tableau user group. I'm also going to throw in enthusiasm, all right, and if I can, I don't want to be too sycophantic, but I think that's the reason why I wanted you to come along today and to give your enthusiasm and also to give your insights into your sessions inside. I have a question, actually, if I can.
Yeah, please.
I thought it was interesting. I wrote it down here. You're teaching from concepts and not content, right? And what is it about that you find engages people more? Because when you mentioned that, I went back to being in fifth year and listening to a great business teacher that we had called Donal O'Neill, and he was great at throwing out. He'd focus on the details and all the lists that you had to learn off in BizOrg back in the day, which was pretty boring. But every now and again, he'd throw out some sort of stuff and say, what do you think about this? And that was far more engaging, I think. And he would start classes off with that in order to get a bit of buy-in. And then he'd hammer us with the lists, and say, well, you have to learn this because it's regurgitation. So what is it about the concepts and not content that you thought helped?
Look, that's a great points. Great question. I mean, I think it's all about how you. For me, it's kind of about like respecting folks, basically. And I think if you teach them the concepts, then they can figure anything out themselves, right? If you just give them a list of things, and they'll say, "Well, this is being forced down my throat," right? And you want to be able to empower individuals, basically. And so if they know the building blocks of stuff, then nothing's off limits. And it's same with, I mean, I think there are places, there is a place for saying, okay, well, here's how we're going to make a waterfall chart. Here's how the things that can be helpful at times. But for me, I just think about my own Tableau journey, if you want to call it that. I mean, at least initially I was like, okay, that's a really cool chart. How am I going to figure it out? And you kind of, you just kind of, you don't really understand why the things are working, but they just do. And you have your nice chart at the end of it. But then, as my kind of Tableau knowledge grew, and I'm still learning plenty, but I realized, okay, this is how Tableau thinks about this kind of stuff. And therefore these kind of chart types that I would, they would be non-standard ones, I guess. All of a sudden, because I know how Tableau is thinking and I know the concepts that's working from, I can draw these crazy things that I wouldn't have taught before because I understand how it works.
Yeah, I think you're while you were talking there, you used a key word, which is when you were saying like it's great to show people how to build charts and all that kind of thing, but you used a key word, which is why. Yeah. Why build that chart? I mean, what's it for ultimately? And again, it goes back to this whole thing of, my higher maths teacher walking in and throwing stuff up on the board going X plus Y equals 7, blah, blah, blah. And I'm there going, who cares? And, because I was never told why I would need that. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's giving people, it's part of the buy-in, I suppose, why do we do things this way, and why is it useful? I think that's really important. So brilliant. Look, yeah, is there anybody who has any questions I think we'll just use the chat for questions, to be honest with you. I mean, there is Q&A, but we'll use the chat for questions. So if anybody has any questions at all, please fire them in. I see there's 31 of you there, so that's great. And
I have one question for you, David.
Yeah, Katie.
Right. Yeah. I'm unmuted anyway, so I'll go for it. Actually, it came into my head there. When you did your training, David, did you use dummy data, or did you use, actual bank data? The usual stuff people would use?
No, we're pretty sensitive about sharing data in the bank, as you can imagine. So generally speaking, I would use, in the examples we did have would be, Makeover Monday data, or, something that wasn't particularly sensitive.
Okay. Did you find people were okay learning with that, or were they kind of like, I'd actually just rather learn with my usual data that I see every day? Or like, were people fine with using dummy data? Like, I think
they're fine with it. We definitely there a couple of the sessions we had were definitely with bank use cases in mind, right? So what I mean by that is the kinds of the chart types and Tableau features that would be relevant to banking scenarios. So like waterfall charts is a great one, right? We're always thinking about how the revenue change from here to here, for example, and that's a really great way to visualize that. So we had a specific session to say, hey, we're not going to show you any bank data, but here's a chart type with a really strong banking use case. It's particularly relevant to you guys. So that's how we structured some of our content. But as for actual bank data, we didn't use that, I'm afraid.
Cool. Good to know. I was curious. Thanks.
Yeah, I have one other question actually before we move on. Sorry about this. Now I don't want to delay anybody or delay Katie, but there's one other question. What were the results?
What do you mean?
Yeah, like, I mean, how did it go? Like, I mean, did people engage? I mean, did you find interest and usage of Tableau went up, and how did it go? Like,
all right, great question. People consistently showed up, which I thought was a great sign that they wanted, they enjoyed the session. They didn't think it wasted their time. They got something out of it. So that was really cool. We always, the first couple of sessions are really high and then it'd peter out, but we had a solid, 40, 50 people coming every single week, which I thought was a great sign. And they were consistent. They were the same people too, right? So it suggested to me that they really liked what was going on. I think on the engagement side, there was a couple of people that were, unafraid to raise their voices. Folks kind of like me, those annoying people that are always asking the questions and things. But a lot of folks, yeah, they kept quiet. And I would try to, one thing we would do to try to get engagement going on is plant questions. So and we'd ask, so just to get the ball rolling, right? Somebody would ask a question. Very interesting. Let me. But I think because it is in that virtual world that we're in, it's a little bit easier to kind of just be a bit more passive learner. But I still think it was really well received. We did get some specific feedback from a number of people, like single digit people basically, but that they really loved it, really enjoyed it, opened their eyes to some other creative possibilities that they hadn't been aware of before. So, I mean, overall, I think we can call it a glowing success.
Sure.
But I guess on the engagement side is something that I would have liked to have seen more of, to be honest. But again, I think that's something that we all struggle with in this kind of in this world of work, right? I mean, even in like I remember back in my college days, I did a couple of kind of teaching assistant jobs basically, and you'd have a very small class of 20 people and you're in the room with them and that they don't know the answer to these questions. So what I would often do is I would pose a question, a really basic one, and I would answer it myself, kind of thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, this kind of passive engagement thing, it's not new.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
It's not new.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a comment there from, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Meike Tunison. Where are you dialing in from, Meike? Actually, it's one of those classic things.
Finland, is it?
It'll be. It looks like a Finnish name, but I'll read this out. I struggle with choosing what to teach during an advanced workshop for 1.5 hours. I already did a speed tipping session of 60 minutes on video, but now I want to teach a classroom training. I have enough ideas to teach for a week, I guess. So how to choose what to tell, and how would you balance the demo versus explaining versus letting them practice during the session? Because that takes a lot of time. Then you have less time to teach. That's a good point. It's experience, isn't it?
Well, I would say, relevance, like whatever content you're going to be, whatever you're going to be showing the audience, make sure it's relevant to them. Make sure that they would definitely see how they could use whatever it is in their own work. Like that's got to be number one to drive, what you want to teach them. After that, I would say, if you have a relevant idea, then just go through it. And I would be probably, I found our demos, when we would often talk about something in kind of a theoretic, conceptual way first, and then we would open up Tableau desktop and get into some nitty gritty of typing out some calculations and stuff. And I've found that we got some feedback that folks really like that. Even the advanced guys, they just want to see how somebody else who knows how Tableau works, how they do it, basically, how they use it, and how they make it it's helpful for others to say, I didn't realize you could just, drag and drop the calculated field into another calculated field. You just pick up tips, basically. But also, again, around that it gives you an opportunity to kind of like narrate what you're up to, and that idea around speaking precisely about, how it is doing what you're doing. You kind of, you underscore those ideas, right? As you subtly build up that understanding of the Tableau vocab to empower your folks. Because even if you are an advanced user, like I don't care who you are, there's no way you know everything about this tool. I'm using it for many, many years now, and I'm still figuring out, cool things that surprise me. So advanced or otherwise, I think they'll still find something valuable, in the kind of the walkthrough.
Okay, so Meike has just, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Meike has just said she's dialing in from the Netherlands, and she also says thanks, and that's absolutely no problem. If I'm able to say that on your behalf, David, nice one. Okay, listen, guys, if there's no further questions, there's another participant to let in. John Quirk says thanks, great call. There is somebody else, Sean Carroll, wants to come in. So I'm going to hand over to Katie. David, thank you very much again. I'll ask you to go on mute. I'm going to go on mute as well, and I'll knock off my video. Katie Kilroy down in Cork, come on in, Katie, and away you go. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thanks, Johnny. So I wonder, perfect. Okay, stop sharing. Cool.
Yeah, I can see you anyway.
Cool. Let's get the screen going there. So
Yeah, there's the screen that we had from earlier. Yeah, brown screen, and there you go.
Cool. So you're seeing people around a laptop, yeah?
There's your slide. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go on mute now. Thanks, Katie.
Perfect.
Nice
no
one.
worries. Organizing my windows here. And okay. Cool. So I'll get started. So yeah, thanks, Johnny, for the introduction. Thanks for having me today. Very happy to be here in great company here with David. So thanks again. Let's tell you just a couple things about myself to kick off with. So yeah, I've been using Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server for about 6 years. And I've been publishing work to Tableau Public for about 3 years, since 2018. Most of my stuff on Tableau Public is from a lot of the projects in the community. So as David mentioned, Makeover Monday, which is now kind of gone. It's done now. But Iron Quest, Viz for Social Good. There's a lot of different projects that are out there. So I try to participate in some of those when I can. Yes, this is my first season as a Tableau ambassador, which is cool. And I'm an analytics manager for a company called Arlo. So what we do in Arlo is we make smart home security devices. So things like security cameras, doorbells, floodlight cameras, video doorbells, that sort of thing. So in that role, my team and we all spend a lot of time working with Tableau in particular. But we do work with a lot of other kind of tools and systems, and we would be connecting Tableau directly to some of those tools and systems to do different data exploration and analyses. So we spend a lot of time using Tableau. So with that, I'll just get right down to it. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about the community forums. Okay, so I'll go for maybe 20 minutes-ish. So some of you might be familiar with the forums and you know what they are and you've used them. Maybe some of you have only dabbled in a little bit, and maybe some of you don't even know what they are or you're aware that they're there. So I'm going to go through a couple details around what they are, why you should participate or get involved if you haven't already, and how to get started. So I'll probably spend most of my time on the why, but I'm just going to talk about what they are, why you should get involved, and how to get involved. So there should be something new in here, I think, for everybody. So I hope you guys enjoy. What I'm going to do before I dive in is I'm going to paste some of the links to pages that I'm going to be talking about. I'm just going to put them into the chat so that you have them. You can just ping them there. So you can dump those into a Word document and save it for later. Or what you can do, if you like, during my talk is they're in the order of kind of generally how I'm going to be speaking. So if you want to follow along on some of those pages as I'm talking, please go for it. I just didn't want to toggle back and forth between PowerPoint, Zoom, and a browser because it just gets a bit messy. So I'll just leave it to yourselves to click into those links as I'm going through the presentation. So what are the Tableau community forums? Okay. So I'm specifically talking about this particular area. So on the Tableau website, if you go to resources and then community forums, so just like I have it up there on the screen, that brings you to kind of the home page for the community forums. So you're going to see that little blue banner, and then I've got in the red box there, that's kind of the main menu for the community forums. Okay, so everything you're going to navigate to in the forums is going to be from this area on the site. So what is it? Okay, the communities are, the community forum is it's a place you can go to get help, to get support with different questions you might have when you're stuck on stuff. It's a place you can go to help other folks to share your own expertise on Tableau. You can use the forums to help build your own reputation as a Tableau expert. The forums are a way that you contribute your own ideas to the Tableau product roadmap through their ideas board. And finally, what I'll discuss is the forums are a great way to connect with other users and build your own network. So these are only 5 points that I'm gonna go through, but there's much more in the forums, but these are just kind of 5 main points I wanna go through in detail. So yeah, so we'll get down to it. So the first point, so why would you want to get involved? So you might need help. Okay, so probably the main reason most people go to the forums is to get help. They're stuck on something. You know, we've all had some kind of a problem or puzzle at work, we'll say, and we're stuck and we don't have somebody to ask. I know it might depend on your company, but sometimes we might be one of only a couple users. We might be the only user, or maybe you're in a company where there's loads of users. But we've all been stuck, from time to time. And, you can check blogs, you can go surfing online, you can look for knowledge-based articles. And that's all great. And there's always trial and error for learning stuff. And those are fantastic ways to learn. But sometimes you do actually want to ask somebody because you have something that's specific, and it's nice to be able to ask someone. So this is where the folks that are on the forums can really step in and give you a hand, try to provide a solution. Okay. Another point I'll make is that the question you might have has probably come up before in some shape or form. So there could already be a post out there that it's already been answered or dealt with. So somebody might be able to just kind of redirect you to a post, or you search for it, find it yourself, that kind of thing. So that I would say that there's no question that's totally new, And then in general, I'd say sometimes you might just need guidance. Maybe you're starting out with something and you just kind of want a general idea of how to approach a particular problem. Folks in the forums can help with that. Or sometimes you might be, you're trying to do something, and somebody might come back with feedback saying, actually, maybe you should use a level of detail calculation for this, or a table calculation will work better than a calculated field because of X, Y, Z, whatever. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to get some guidance from someone else, and there's folks on the forum who can help with that. I'll mention as well, sometimes there's a better way to do something than whatever you're trying. So if you're getting stuck on something, and I've definitely been in this position, say for example, a very common use case is trying to replicate or recreate some report, we'll say from Excel, and I just use that example because it comes up a lot. Like Excel and Tableau work differently. So you might be kind of focused on, and I've done this, you get focused on doing it in a certain way because that's how it was done in the tool it was made in, or that's the way it was done before. So you just kind of get stuck on trying to do it in a particular way, or having it structured in a particular way. And you just don't realize that there might be a better way to do it. So if you put that out to folks in the forums, these folks are looking at it from a totally objective point of view. They've never seen it before. They don't know where it's coming from. So they might actually have quite a different approach to it that might be better, might be more dynamic, might be more automated, that sort of a thing. So just something to remember. The forums are a really great place to get support when you need some help, when you're stuck on something, because the folks that generally participate in answering questions on the forums, they're there to help and they want to help. So yeah. So that's a couple points around asking for help on the forums. So I'll move on to getting onto the forums to share your own expertise. So as you get to know more and more about the family of Tableau products, it's not going to be very long before you yourself are probably able to share information and answer questions for other folks. So I just want to mention that you probably know more than you think. Sharing that with other folks on the forums is a great way to you realize that, oh, I actually do know X, Y, Z. So it's great to be able to share your own information with folks on the forum. Related to that, in general, and I think we know this, but when you help other people, you end up learning. So again, we kind of know this, but this is definitely relevant to maybe participating in the forums, because like say, for example, for me, like I've seen a question the odd time and I know maybe 50% of it or 70% of it. I know most of it. And then I might've done just a little bit digging to get the end to maybe help somebody out. Well, that 30% that I dug up, that's new for me. It's win-win. Like I've learned something new, and I've definitely given people a hand with something that I didn't need or know about, but then 4 months later, 6 months later, something came up and I'm like, actually, I think I did that with such and such. Oh, that's the thing that I need, that kind of way. So when you help other people, you end up learning. So you can benefit from this. Concept of paying it forward. Like I mentioned that it's kind of relevant here because like, if I think back to different people who've helped me learn over the years and are continuing to help me learn as we speak, I've often thought, like, how can you really say thank you? How can you like pay them back, so to speak? It's really hard to sort of do that. So I like to think of kind of, helping out on the forums helping other people who are maybe getting started, or just helping out at different questions. It's a way to kind of give back, to kind of saying thank you to people who helped you in the past, but it's a nice way to contribute and give back. Another point, committing information to memory. So you help somebody out with a question on the forum, you've learned something new, you've created a quick packaged workbook, and you've drafted a response to the person, and you've kind of thought it through from beginning to end. You're sort of, it's almost like writing something down. Sometimes you remember something better if you write it down. I don't know if that works for me, but maybe not for everybody. But I think going through and helping somebody out with a question and documenting it helps you remember that information more so than if you were to just read a blog post kind of passively, if you get me. You're just reading an article and then you move on. You don't necessarily remember that as much compared to doing something and interacting with somebody. So I think it just helps you remember it a bit better. And then perhaps the opposite to what I just said is that when you're kind of going back and forth on the forums, you can refer back to it. So you might a couple months later think, actually, I think I helped out somebody with a question on something like that. That might be what I need. What was it? You can refer back to that that piece that you helped someone out with on the forum, because it can be searched later. So it's kind of a great thing to remember about the forums, is that you're kind of contributing to the knowledge that's being shared there. So people can search it and find it later on, and you can be helping other people without even realizing it. So yeah, so sharing your expertise, that's a great reason to get involved in the forums. So another one, building your reputation, okay? So you can accumulate, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you can accumulate online badges and you can climb the leaderboard. So that's a picture of the leaderboard there. I know you have a link to it there. So you can have a quick flick through, filter, et cetera, to see who's out there. But some folks are really motivated by a bit of gamification. But yeah, your reputation on the community forums directly corresponds to how active you are. So the more you post and comment and share and engage, the higher your reputation level goes. And based on different things, in different ways you engage, you get a different number of points. So some things are perhaps worth heavier points than others, that kind of thing. And I'll just show you quickly, these are kind of the reputation levels on the community forum. So it's always fun to get a little online kind of virtual recognition. So it's something, it's kind of cool, it's kind of fun. It's another reason that, it could tempt you to get involved in the forums. So I'll talk about the ideas board next. So bringing your own suggestions to Tableau, okay? So you can, through the ideas board, you can bring your own ideas for the product to the ideas board, or you can see what's there and upvote those ideas. And this is actually really cool. And I know that this has taken, Tableau definitely look at this. Like in the past year, there have been almost 40 ideas that they've implemented that came from people in the community, just like us on this call. They came from people in the community. They shared the idea on the ideas board and other people upvoted along the way. So yeah, they've implemented almost 40 things in the last year. I'll give you two small examples. One feature that's coming soon, it's in version 2021.4, is the ability to copy and paste objects on the dashboard sheet. So that's referring to images, text boxes, blank objects, that kind of thing. Right now, if you're not familiar with this, right now on a dashboard sheet, say you need 5, for whatever design you have, you need 5 boxes that are the exact same size, and you're just using a blank box, a blank object. You bring out one, and it's say with the pixels are whatever they are, you can't just copy that. You have to bring out another box and mess with the pixels to make it the same size. So in the next version, we'll be able to do that very quickly, which is pretty cool. And I know that's an idea that's been out there for a good while. So there's a lot of folks that are very excited about that, myself included. So that's coming, and that's coming. This idea came from somebody in the community. And then another small example, not actually in the product, but on the community forums, copying and pasting images into the forum post. So, and this has been implemented, so this is in there now, but before you had to actually, in your post when you're asking a question or answering a question, if you wanted to share a screenshot, you had to browse and navigate and upload and press buttons to put an image in, whereas now you can just quickly copy and paste. I believe drag and drop works too. So yeah, so that's actually really cool. So those are just two small ideas that came from folks engaging with the ideas board. So just something to remember. You can bring your own ideas to Tableau and influence their product roadmap. So the last reason I want to go through is getting involved in the forums to connect with other users. Okay, so there are lots of ways to connect with other users, other Tableau users. You know, there's, of course, there's social media. There's a lot of folks who are on Twitter and LinkedIn kind of talking about Tableau and different, you know, Tableau related things. There's loads of blogs out there. I know you can follow blogs, you can engage that way. Some people are having conversations off the blog posts. There's the various data challenges that are on kind of weekly and monthly cadences, that sort of thing. Loads of webinars out there. So there's tons of ways to engage with other users and connect and gain expertise. But the two kind of key items I want to talk about are the user groups. So Tableau user group, like we're doing right now, the event today. Okay, so this is a Tableau user group, or this is also known as a TUG. Okay, so this is the, you know, the Ireland virtual group that we're meeting today. This is an actual event, and I'm saying it that way because I want to make the distinction with the Tableau user group boards that are on the forum. Okay, so I'll expand on this a little bit, but I just kind of want to make sure it's clear that sort of the difference between these two things. But yeah, connecting with other users, it's really going to help you build your network. And I would also suggest that, like, whether you realize it or not, when you're engaging with other folks, with other users, when you're engaging with them and you're kind of participating in discussions, you're actually gaining expertise, whether or not you realize it. So I would suggest that, like, connecting with you know, using the forums to connect with other users and other ways to connect with other users, it really helps you learn. So again, you might not even realize it that it's going on, but I would say personally, I used Tableau for a while before I realized that there was ways to kind of connect with others who use the product as well. And my learning exploded when I started connecting with other people. Yeah, so I'll just mention that now that was my experience. So I just think it's valuable to be connecting with other users and seeing what other people are doing and how they're using the tool, because it helps you learn. So anyway, back to the user groups. What I want to call out is, so the difference between the user groups that I've mentioned. So you've got the Tableau user groups, which is what we're doing today. So you see this blue screen here. This might look familiar. This is where you went to register for this event today. It looks something like this with a blue background. But this is, so this usergroups.tableau.com, this is for finding predominantly the location-based Tableau user groups that meet up. So that's what you're generally going to find in here. So they're all based on where people are physically located. Now, what is on here that I'll just call out, because we're in this sort of kind of a gray zone with the pandemic and everything being virtual right now, there is a filter on here to find virtual Tableau user groups. So before the pandemic, there was actually quite a few user groups that met virtually anyway, because they were sort of topic based. So folks who work in, you know, the specific industries, we'll say, for example, they actually had virtual groups anyhow. So there was some virtual groups that existed pre-pandemic. So just calling it out, that this area, usergroups.tableau.com, is for finding user group events. Okay. What I'll talk about here, so the user group boards, kind of the user group events and the user group boards sort of complement each other. So I suppose that the idea is that the user group events, the folks who attend those will join the user group boards to kind of stay in contact after the event later on. That's kind of, it's one way it can be thought of to use. So what I'll talk about on this page is, so I hope that's clear, that the board is sort of like an extension of say, the groups. Now, most groups have a board. Some boards don't have a group. So they're connected, but they are slightly different. Some user groups only connect over the forums. I would say most Tableau user groups that meet for events have a board, but there are some folks that only really connect over the forums. So, and that's just kind of a general sort of description there. But what I want to call out about the user group boards is that, firstly, if you notice the group types, I just kind of want to differentiate what these are. The two main types are private and public. So public examples would be like, the Dublin user group or the London user group, Toronto, whatever. A lot of location-based groups are going to be public. The private groups, if you see those in there, you can set up a private user group, say, for example, within your company. So if you look on there, you might notice Accenture has a Tableau user group forum space. Nissan is on there, and I know there's loads of different colleges and universities. I remember seeing American Eagle. So you work at company X, and you might want to have your Tableau user group board kind of posted here on the forums. So that's what the private groups are. So really useful, and it's good to know that there are companies that do that. They kind of have their they're kind of taking advantage of this functionality to have their users be able to connect that way. There's of course kind of the general search field there in the center. But what I kind of want to mention as well about user groups is, so as you mentioned, a lot of them are location based. Like ours today, of course, it's virtual, but I think a lot of our attendees are probably based in Ireland. So groups can be location specific or industry specific. So for example, you work in healthcare, okay? You work in sales analytics, you work in HR, education, something like that. There are user group boards that are specific to those industries. And that can be really helpful because, like, as I mentioned before, maybe I'll take the example of, perhaps you use Tableau and you work in HR. So there might not be very many people. HR departments tend to be small for a start. And then perhaps you're the only Tableau user in your HR department. So who do you kind of talk to about stuff? Like how to solve different problems. You don't have many people you can kind of connect with. So tapping into something like that on here, some of the industry specific user group boards could really be beneficial for you. Tackling, you might be tackling similar problems. So also areas of expertise kind of boards. So I know there's a board for folks who are new to Tableau Server, so Tableau Server admins. And I noticed a board for folks working with survey data. So maybe you have a specific project, you're doing something with survey data. Take a look at what the survey data group is doing or what they're talking about, or you can throw some questions on there or generate some discussions. Has anybody ever done whatever? So just wanted to call that out. Last one I want to call out that could be interesting is there is a job listings user group board. So folks who are looking to recruit candidates with Tableau skills post jobs here. So I think it's just called job listings from memory. So yeah, and I took a quick look. There's new positions that have been advertised as recently in the last week. So if you're job hunting, that could be a great resource for you. I think that's all I'm going to mention here for the user group boards. Yes. Okay, so how do you get involved? Okay. So again, just so you're clear as to where I'm at. So from the main Tableau page, getting to the main page for the kind of the home page for the community forums, that's kind of where we're starting here. So set up a profile if you don't have one already. So this is going to be the same one that you use to log into tableau.com. So I'll use the example of the free kind of on-demand training videos. So it's gonna, whatever you use to log into that is gonna be the same for the forums, okay? And it's just this little, the little login there in the top right corner, that's where you're gonna go. If you're not set up, I think it's gonna prompt you to register. So yeah, so that's where you'd be going to set up a profile. And what I'll talk about next is when you're going in, I would suggest checking out in the yellow box here I've got on the screen, check out the first time here link. Okay, so this has good information around getting familiar with some of the etiquette and kind of the best practices when participating in the forums. I know David was talking earlier about being precise when you're asking, when you're teaching and when you're kind of engaging. So I mentioned that because some of the information on that link is about the best way to ask questions. And I think that's on there because if you frame the question in a good, solid way, you're more likely to get a good response that might work for you. So there's just some information on there about the best way to ask questions. If you're not sure how to make your data random, there's a link on there as to how to do that. Obviously, none of us can share work data. That's one thing that comes up a lot on the forums is folks say, oh, I can't share my work data. But you can always, it might take a couple minutes, but if you put in the time to anonymize your data, there is a better chance that you're going to get a good response that might actually help you solve your problem. And then there's also information on using the search engine on the forum in there. So I'll leave that link to you guys to check when you're maybe someday if you're ready to dive in. But to David's point about knowing how to ask Google questions, be something similar. You'll get a better result if you search the right way in the search engine. And then look, after that, I would say, how do you get involved? I'd say dive in, start engaging. Ask a question. If you're up to it, maybe answer one, check out the ideas board, connect with users. Now, you don't have to do all this at the same time. Maybe pick one thing and start slow and see how you get on, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's how you get involved. The main thing is setting up a profile and getting in there and having a look around. So I'll just do a quick recap, just to kind of remind you of the different points, and then we'll go on from there. So yeah, so why would you want to get involved on the community forums? Main reason is to get support, to get help, ask questions. You can also help others out, answer questions. Again, you certainly gain by doing that because you learn in the process when you're helping other people. So you benefit from that. Growing your reputation by building up the online points and the badges, little gamification, it's always fun. Contributing your ideas to the product roadmap. So again, the ideas board. It's a really great resource. There's some cool ideas that are out there if you get a chance to take a look. Yeah, there's some really cool ideas that are out there just waiting to be upvoted. So worth a look. And then lastly, connecting with other users. So the fact that you're all here today is a great first step. You've all joined a Tableau user group, and lots of you are return attendees. So thanks for that. But yeah, connecting with other users is a great way, either through the events or through the user groups on the forum. I wanted to kind of shed some light on the user groups on the forums because I'm not sure our folks aware that there are user groups there. So I just kind of want to call that out, that there's user groups, there's folks that connect on there that you might not be aware of, and it can be a really great resource. And by connecting with other users, I would suggest that increases your kind of learning trajectory a lot. I know it has for me anyway, and I know the other folks I've talked to have said the same thing, that their learning just went off the charts when they started connecting with other people. So just put that out there. And then how do you get involved? Set up your profile, log in if you haven't done it already. Check out that first time here link. I'll warn you, there's a lot of information in there, but have a look and just get familiar with the best practice, how folks generally engage, and then start engaging. So that's kind of all I had. So thanks everybody. Happy to take questions down the line. If you want to connect, feel free to reach out. You can of course find me on the messaging tool in the forums. Absolutely. You can also find me on Twitter or on my blog. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Katie, thank you very much for that. That was great, and I think the biggest thing that I got from that really was the scope of what's available and what's out there for people to engage and to help. And I like, people will be blue in the face hearing me saying this because I say it at every Tableau user group, but it is the one thing that when I started getting involved with the information lab, whatever it is now, was it 5 years ago or 6? I can't remember. But one thing that kind of blew me away was the generosity of people. Like they share without expecting, without expecting anything back necessarily, but it kind of goes in a circle, and there's no such thing as a stupid question, because I think everybody had to learn, and there's nobody, like even the guys who are really, the top on top of their game, they have a manner that just isn't condescending or patronizing or sort of can't believe you don't know that. There's not that kind of attitude there, it's a very generous sort of attitude. So never be afraid to fire in any sort of a question at all, because and everybody has to start.
David mentioned about something you said there. No matter how long you're using it, you're still learning. And you're still surprised by, I didn't know I could do. I didn't think to do it that way. That goes on constantly.
So I love that. Yeah, I love that. I like when I write some of the blogs for the Information Lab on some of the Tableau tips, right? I'd always get Daniel Ling to have a look over just to make sure everything's all right, okay? And he's great. And Daniel, I get a great kick, like, because Daniel's so bloody good at what he does. I get a great kick when he turns around and says, "Oh, I didn't know that," and I gotta go. I taught you something, master. So you know, that kind of thing. So you get a bit of a buzz out of that, but there's no sort of surprise by it, like, you know what I mean, because as you said, everybody is learning. Look, has anybody, before we finish up, we're doing nicely on time, so we for lunch we'll be able to have starters and maybe even dessert at this stage, but I'm just wondering, has anybody got any questions before we do finish up? I put a few things into the chat there in terms of just so we're always on the lookout for speakers, and if you have something interesting to say, or you feel that you're using Tableau in new and innovative ways, please you know, get in touch with johnny.butler@theinformationlab.ie, and we'd be happy to listen to what you want to put forward. As we said, we're always looking to learn and find out new things. We really appreciate everybody turning up. And actually, now that I've got a screen with everybody there, I'm going to ask a really naff question, and that is for everybody to turn on their cameras so I can get a screen grab and prove that we had people here, and we'll just fire it up on the social media, and the guys back in Salesforce in the United States will be delighted, and so we can see your faces and put faces to the names and all that kind of thing. So turn on your cameras there. I'm going to get a quick screen grab, and we'll be ready to go. You don't have to go now and do makeup or anything like that, so you can just we'll just get the screen grab and we're ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to do it now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you're not in, it's just going to be your name. Okay, so ready? You're ready? Still have time to change your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, Paddy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and here we go. And there's the print. Okay, very good. Okay, and that is lovely. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great stuff. Everybody's smiling and delighted with that, and well done. All right, great stuff. There is something coming in from the chat there, so I'll just have a quick look. If I may, I'll just get that in a second. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see Pushkar had 2 questions.
Yes.
He's looking
Great.
for a
Thank you,
Slack
Katie.
channel. No, all good. So for the Slack channel, there are private Slack channels on different topics. What I might do, Pushkar, is let me have a think about that, and maybe I can connect back to you over LinkedIn. And then I saw your other question that you're just starting out. So is it possible to learn Tableau in two months? The short answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I can ping you on some resources perhaps after. I'll connect with you over maybe LinkedIn. But yeah, the answer is yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah, can I jump in there on that, Katie?
Yeah,
in terms of that, can I just say, like, is it important? He's saying, can I learn Tableau in 2 months? So I would say, you know, where do you start? Like, I mean, should he start off with making sure he knows all about unions, joins, all of that kind of stuff, and then look at the charts, or should you start with the chart, having fun, or, you know, is it good to get under the hood first a little bit? I see David's nodding, and so that you're not stepping back, or what's the way, would you say?
I'd start small with some small dummy data.
Yeah.
Small data
and building charts.
Yeah, you can see a little table.
Yeah.
Of the data, and there's no question about what it is. It's not like thousands or millions of rows. Start with something small.
Yeah.
Compact, and definitely as a very basic starting point, I would say the videos on the site, the free videos on the site is a great just starting point. Absolutely. Yeah. But David, what do you?
Well, my view on this one is basically, yeah, it's absolutely possible, and I think the best way to learn it is basically viz every day. Basically, just don't stop building stuff. And practice. You know, it reminds me of that fable of the pottery class that was divided into 2, and one had to make like 1 pot as their final mark, and the other guy had to make like 20 kilos of pots. So, and the guys who made 20 kilos of pots, because they're making loads and loads and loads of pots, they had the most beautiful pots at the end. because they'd made so many of them, basically. So don't be thinking about how you might do a viz. Just get in there and roll up sleeves, big data, small data, whatever. Just make something and figure it out. And then the next day, make something else. And keep doing that for 2 months. And I guarantee you, you'd be a whiz. You'd be a creeble.
Here's a question for you. What was your first chart? Mine was the Eurovision. I did one on the Eurovision. And it had about 20 lines of data or something like that. And it was about how many times each country had won a Eurovision, and it was a map. So I'm wondering, can you remember your first chart?
I mean, Tableau one, I suppose. I think the first one I made on Tableau Public was, it was like comparing the prices of beer and the prices of chicken tikka in different pubs in England. But you know, yeah, like I would say, yeah, just whatever it is, just keep making vizzes, and you'll be a viz whiz in no time. Yeah,
cool. Katie, can you remember your first?
Yeah, I think my first non-work viz, Tableau Public viz, was I think it was a Makeover Monday data set, and I think it was like the pay differences between U.S. presidents, staff.
Yeah.
I'm not articulating that great, but it was something about pay related to the different administrations.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
not as fun as the food, you know.
Well. Absolutely. Okay. Well, hopefully that answers a few things. Thank you, Katie and Jonathan, for your inputs, and David, and thanks, David, as well. And that's all great. So look, if nobody has any further questions, I think will we call it a day, or call it an afternoon, or whatever you want to call it, and we'll wrap there. If anybody has any other questions, now is the time to speak. Paddy Kavanagh, great to see you as always. Great supporter of the Alteryx user groups and the Tableau user groups, so it's great to have you along, and Ida as well. So great to see you. And look, it's probably the last one for the year. We'll see how we get on, but we'll look forward to hopefully having one. I think we'll keep the Ireland one going, even if the Dublin and the Cork ones, you know, come back and face to face. We'll probably keep the Ireland one going because it's a bit of crack, and it also allows us to get international guests in as well, which is kind of cool. And that's great. Sunil, thank you guys. I got to know about Tableau groups. That's great. That's what it's all about, mate. So tell your friends and come along to the next one as well. And so look, if David or Katie, unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to wrap it up there, and hopefully we'll get the recording up and out soon. Keep an eye on the Information Labs LinkedIn page as well for some beautiful photos and other information. And yeah, look, enjoy Tableau and keep on going. And I suppose at this point, if I don't see you, happy Christmas. I can't believe I said that. There you go. The first happy Christmas of the year.
Well, take care.
I'll let everybody go as I'm the host. I'm virtually opening the door and letting you out and saying bye. So off you go, and I'll wait until the end. David, Katie, thanks a lot.
Cheers. Take care, guys. Thank you.